Okay, so quick introduction of myself. I'm Emilian. I'm an entrepreneur first. I built a number of companies over the past 7 years in various geographies. A lot of consumer internet companies. I used to run Rocket Internet in a couple of markets in China, Russia, South Africa, and Nigeria. So I was starting companies with Rocket. Probably all of you know, the big giants, which most of them didn't work eventually. I moved by 2014 into running Groupon in South Africa. So moved from entrepreneur to CEO of a bigger venture. Didn't last too long, and moved into on completely the other side of the barrier, running or starting a venture capital fund focused on Africa back in beginning 2015. So that's what I've been doing since. I'm a partner in a fund called Digame Digital Growth Africa, and Middle East. We wanted to do Middle East initially. We ended up doing only Africa. So we do growth stage investments in technology-enabled countries across the continent, and for us, Africa, it's mostly four markets: South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, and Egypt. So I'm not here to get you through the how to the typical mistakes or the tips of how to be a better entrepreneur. That's something that I'm sure you guys can learn in school or you've learned through yourself. I just wanted to give you a few examples of great entrepreneurs, but also of mistakes that some of those entrepreneurs have done out of my own experience and out of the experience of the many entrepreneurs, the over 450 companies I've met through my VC life and before. So I would start with how many, I guess most of you are entrepreneurs. Is there any VC here? I guess no, most of the VCs are in Dave McClure session, I guess. But anyways, anyone recognizes this place? Can be Istanbul, Cairo. Great. 10 points. So Cairo, why I want to show you that? So one of the important things as an entrepreneur is knowing how to tell your story. Super important. And some people have 30 seconds, the 30-second speech. And so I met back in February. I was in Cairo with all our board, our fund board, and we had our board meeting there. And we're in the hotel, and just before the board meeting, we were going to visit a couple of companies, and I remember we're going to visit Visita, which you may know, this doctor appointment company. They raised a bunch of rounds, and the bus of the hotel was late. So luckily, one of the people together with us was Ahmed Alfi, who's one of the big investors in Egypt. He actually founded Flat Six Labs and Sawari Ventures. And Ahmed said, well, don't worry. Let me call you a guy, and a guy whom I incubated. And he calls this guy who actually is the founder of a company called Swivel. What Swivel does is they completely reinvented the transportation in a 30 million people city, right? And then this can be Cairo, this can be Istanbul, this can be Lagos, this can be Sao Paulo, right? So completely innovated, created a private transportation, a technology company, using tech and buses to solve a huge problem in a city where people cannot, the traffic is crazy, you can't take Uber and Karim every day because it costs money, people can't commute to work unless they use their own car, and they're gonna end up there, or pay a lot of money for an Uber, or jump in a bus which can get them somewhere. 90-something% of the women get sexually harassed in buses in Cairo. So this guy came with a bus. And while we went to visit, it took us more than an hour to get there from the hotel. While he was in the bus with all us and the board, he told us the story of Swivel. Amazing story. So in that 45 minutes, we ended up having our board meeting the next day, and we invested. So we ended up investing $2.5 million so we closed the first round in end of March, beginning April. I'm an observer in the Swivel board. And we're doing a new round now. So super important, tell the story. Second thing is passion, right? I'm not, it's passion and energy, you all know it's super, super important. But another great example, we invested in another company called Get Smarter, based in Cape Town, an education tech company, similar to, you may know, Coursera.com and Udemy and those what we call the MOOCs, the massive education platforms. And those guys ended up selling last year, making an amazing exit. They sold for $103 million to a US listed company called To You. So they made a lot of money for themselves, a lot of money for us as investors. But why I wanted to talk about them? Because I actually met those guys back in 2011 or 2012. I was helping at the time Endeavor in South Africa with their local selection panels, and they applied for Endeavor. And when I met them, I went to the office, and their office was, they're having like 100 and something people at the time, and everyone was super happy. They were doing sports in the office, they were having those interactive meetings, they were using every single piece of this office, a bit like here, right? With tables, with food and joking, and the way those guys presented their company inspired so much passion and so much energy. And moreover, the way they were giving this passion and this energy to their own teams. So, by the way, Get Smarter was chosen one of the happiest companies in Cape Town at the time, that year. So, super important. How do you present yourself? Focus, right? I mean, it's very, it's nothing new here. This is also one of the red flags for investors, and I think Asra mentioned this before. So. It's very difficult to do more than one thing at the same time, unlike you are Elon Musk and you can build and run 4 companies or 3 companies at the same time. But we have one brain, so it's very difficult to allocate different parts of this brain to different things, and I haven't seen many people successful launching and running more than one startup in the same time. And also, again, for investors, big red flag. Do your homework. Be prepared. Before you launch a company, do a lot of market research. And this is one anecdote here. While in my beginning in Rocket Internet, I was in Berlin, and I remember my boss at the time, Oliver Zamver, said, "We want to build this, we want to copy Airbnb." And then, Emilian, you come to the office, and then tomorrow you fly to China and going to build an Airbnb clone in China. Well, fair enough. I went to China with no prior research. But I arrived in China. There was already a team there. My co-founder had a 20 developers team there. Just build overnight, and we started to build. We built the technology first, and then we started to go. The guy American Chinese, so not even Chinese, but we realized that Chinese people do not rent rooms in their apartments. They rent only full of empty apartments. So in 1 year in China, I did not get invited to one single Chinese, and I had a lot of friends. And then that's to say that we wanted to start an Airbnb in a place where we didn't do any prior research, where actually people don't rent rooms in their apartments. So big mistake. This costed us. We raised money. The company survived for a couple of years, but died afterwards. Well, don't look too far ahead. This may be, you may say, entrepreneurs need to project themselves to the future. The reality is that you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen in 5 years from now or in 10 years from now. We may be run by robots and by I don't know what else. When I look at companies as an investor and to entrepreneurs, I want to see their plan for the next year, maybe 2 years from now, right? When someone tells me, and this applies to everything, but mostly when you look at big e-commerce companies and someone comes and tell me I'm going to sell gazillions of goods and in I don't know how many markets. No. Look at what's going to happen now, next year, in 2 years, come with a precise plan, and that's good enough. And talking about a plan, how important is to have a plan, right? How important is to have a financial model? And I've seen so many companies, so many entrepreneurs coming with maybe a slide deck, but no projections, nothing. And this is wrong, because you need to know for yourself what's happening, how much money you're gonna make, what are your KPIs, and for the investor to whom you pitch. Execution, you've heard this over again, how important it is to execute. I mean, this, building a house, right? When you build a house, you start with the foundation, and then you build the first floor, etc., right? So, and I've seen so many examples where, and people build companies, but there is no foundation, right? They go immediately and they hire a lot of people, and they hire the people before having the tech platform, and this fails. This is a clear recipe for failure. I remember this story. I was when I was a student, I was trying to make a bit of money for myself, and I was working a bakery in Paris at the time. And I remember I was going at 4 in the morning every day. Why? Because you need to make the bread before the customers come. So you basically bake overnight. You sell during the day, until the end of the day, and then you count the money nighttime. And this is super important, counting every single penny, and be sure that you spend only on what you need to spend. It's nothing new here, but I found it super important because I see so many companies, so many entrepreneurs who spend way too much. And I think Asra was mentioning earlier, having a lifestyle, or a lavish lifestyle, which doesn't allow them to save enough money and to build a company. Don't hire too fast. This came from one of my failures, actually, one of my biggest failures as an entrepreneur. Back in 2013, I was in Cape Town, started try to build a mobile first platform for last-minute events, a bit like a Groupon for events or like an Uber for events, if you want. And I was just coming from the rocket mindset, where you hire a lot of people, you think very big, and I brought 16 people in Cape Town. We launched 3 cities, Cape Town, Johannesburg, and even Colombia, so we went up to Colombia, to Bogota, before even having the platform ready. So big mistake, we failed. We didn't end up raising subsequent funding, and 1 year later, the company died. Never stop learning. I think it's so important to keep studying, researching, learning, reading books. I try, and listening to books. If you don't have time to read, you can listen. I personally listen to 1 book a week while I'm traveling, while I'm in a bus, or doesn't matter where. And having people to advise you. So super important. I think Asra was mentioning earlier, having mentors, not forcing people to be their mentors, but try to get people to advise you, because this pays off. This pays off in the way you run your business. This pays off in the way you raise funding further on. Be ready to change. Again, focus. We talked about focus earlier, right? Focusing is important, going into one direction. But if the things don't work, if you see that the business is not going exactly into the direction you want to go, then you need to adapt. And that's another example of a company. Friends of mine started a company called PowerMe, which is a pay-as-you-go solar company in Kenya. It's like a box with a battery and 3 lights. And there are a lot of examples of companies which failed in this field. They've been super agile, and they started to look at what else to sell, how to acquire more customers and keep those customers for longer time, how to bring other services, etc. Accept rejection, super important. So unless you're from Japan or countries where there's no Japanese here, right? Where failure is Spanish, or is the wife leaves you, your friends leave you. Rejection happens, right? And failure happens, and actually you learn from failure more than you learn from anything else. And eventually let go. Right, let go. If it's not working, it's not the end of the world. And I've seen so many people who started a business, failed, left, maybe took a job to get some money back, and then started again. And I'll let you go now. I think I'm done with the time. Thank you.
Nice job. All right.